Hi, welcome back, you beautiful souls. This is James, also known as the Oni Zerg. I am back with you guys with I wasn't going to do a 900 sub, but since I haven't really done a lot of uploads, I thought I would take my crack at something that a few YouTubers have done, and they've done some interesting things with it. Like they've done a Dad All Might. So in this what if, Izuka will be female, and her father will be All Might. And how I'm doing this is, well, Inko's not the Inko that we have from canon. And what I mean by that is she will basically have the powers that Emma Frost has from the X-Men. And for those of you who don't know who Emma Frost is, I will leave a link in the description for the wiki page for Emma Frost. Because like her powers and abilities, to really go over it, it would take a good 15-20 minutes of those abilities and powers alone, what she can do, feats and stuff, to explain it. So let's get into our story. We start out long before Nana Shimura dies, and Toshinori goes to the States. So he's like Toshinori, does go to UA. It has been established canonically that he is a UA student. And he's been feeling like distraught. Him and Nana, he's wanting to help Nana out, but she keeps telling him, no, this isn't your fight yet, it's my fight. So the fight with All For One and Nana does happen, but a little thing that happens is, as she's pushing All Might away, she tells him to find someone and have a happy life. Don't be like her, only superhero work. Because her biggest regret is not spending time with her family. So, when Toshinori goes to the States, he's more relaxed. He's not, he still has a goal in mind to get the training to one day come back and fight All For One. So he does. A few years past, him and David meet up. David and him do their hero work. And I would say a year before he moves back to Japan and does his whole debut in Japan, he meets a young woman. Well, this young woman, what catches his eye is she's half Japanese, and she's half Japanese and half Norwegian, and she has some pretty amazing quirks. She's been seen to have this diamond skin. She can move things with her mind. She has telepathy, and she's known as Frost Queen, is what she decided to go by. So on one fateful day, he's dealing with some bad guys, and lo and behold, Frost Queen shows up. And she's a little young. She's a good bit younger than All Might, because I would put All Might... Hold on one moment, I've got to look this up. Sorry about that interruption, but I just wanted to double check this so I know I'm correct. So, All Might is 48 currently in canon, and Inko is 42. So, All Might is about 6 years older than Inko. So, that being said, he's thinking that this young woman is pretty crazy because she just, like, became, like, a hero. Because I would say Inko is, let's put her at 20 and All Might at 26. Just so we can have believable stuff and it's not really, well, So after they deal with the bad guys, All Might kind of notices that Inko's actually pretty cute. And then Inko's like, I'm sorry, do you really think I'm cute? And then she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to read your mind. I just kind of do that sometimes. And, well, and All Might's like, what? You read my mind? And Inko just kind of looks at it. And it's like, do you really think I'm cute? And All Might's like, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. And she's like, well, I think you're pretty cool. All Might, I was actually coming here to, like, really meet you. I've been trying to find you, and I wanted to talk to you because I think you're pretty cool. And so they spend about a year meeting up and talking, and a couple of months after a year has gone by, so that would make them 21 and 27. All Might begins to tell Inko that he's thinking of going back to Japan. And Inko's like, really? Do you think it would be hot? Like, should we go then? Like, because I've always wanted to go back home. And this is when All Might's like, so you originally are from Japan? And she's like, yeah, but my mom, she got a job here in the States, and, well, Dad, his company from Norway, he can pretty much do his work anywhere in the world, so he kind of followed Mom. He did go to Japan because he had, like, a job that he had to do there, but he met Mom, and they had me, and, well, Mom's job brung her here to the States. And then she kind of looks at Toshinori, and she's like, should we both return to Japan then? And Toshinori is a little concerned about this. He's like, why would you want to come back to Japan with me? And Inko just kind of blankly stares at him. And she's like, God, men are supposed to be the ones to say it, not women first. Yagi, I like you. This past year, I've gotten over the bluster of you being an awesome hero. You're a really cool guy, and, well, I really like you. And Toshinori, like, takes a look back, and in that moment, an old repressed memory of his popped up. The day that his mentor died, and he's thinking, it's like, huh. And he thinks back all the times that he had fun with Inko doing hero work, and also them just hanging out. And he basically walks up to Inko and grabs her and hugs her, and then, like, kisses her on the forehead. And he's like, I like you too, Inko, but I haven't really thought about it lately. Like, I've just been focused on my mission. And this is when Inko says, well, how about we go on that journey together then? And so they begin to officially date. And when they tell David about it, he basically says, it finally took you too long enough. Like, because David's sitting there working on something in his lab. Toshinori, he brings Inko by to like basically announce it. And when they walk through the door, David sees like Toshinori holding Inko's hand, and he says, "Oh, Toshinori, you guys are finally dating. Took you too long enough." And they both kind of blush. So they explain to David that they started dating and that they're going back to Japan. And so they have a huge dinner celebration. David's wife is there, because I would say this is his fiance is there, because this is before Melissa is even a thing. No, I believe Melissa's mother passed away when she was young. So she is there, and she's very much pregnant. Or no, she's not pregnant. That would, whatever. Just she is there, and they have a big good celebration dinner of the two becoming a couple, and basically a farewell party for Toshinori. So Inko and Toshinori return to Japan. They do I'm gonna say the iconic rescue did happen. I believe it happened before Deku was born. So that happens, but in this you can just see the two. They see Inko kind of flying, carrying a bunch of people, and you just see All Might carrying a bunch of other people, and they're both smiling and kind of laughing. Well, they're both smiling, and All Might, he's doing his iconic laugh. Oh, 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 oh. And so news reports go out. They're like, are these two together? What's their story? And because they have reports of Frost Queen from the States, and some people are wondering if it's the same person. So All Might and Frost Queen, aka Inko and Toshinori, do an interview. And during the interview, one of the interviewers basically asked them directly, is are you two dating? And, Inko kind of looks down at her hand, and she's kind of blushing. And this is when All Might says, well, yes, we are dating. And, we are actually engaged. So this causes a big hoopla. People are like, what? Two amazing, powerful heroes are dating, and they're getting married. And they do keep Inko does keep her name private. She's never stated what her name is in public. There are people that know who her name is, simply because they have a personal relationship with her. So we skip a few years. Inko would have had to have been. One moment while I do some math. That's what I thought. I just wanted to double confirm it, and sorry about all the pauses and stuff. So we skip another 4.5 years, and our main protagonist is born. During the pregnancy, when Inko found out she was pregnant, basically her and All Might were taking care of a villain, and Inko just started feeling extremely queasy. All Might basically takes care of the guy, and he comes over to his wife, and once they get the villain into the proper authorities and everything, Inko tells Toshinori, and it's I think I may be pregnant. And Toshinori is freaking out because he has explained his quirk to Inko, just not entirely. Like, Inko knows it's an enhancer quirk. Basically enhances Toshinori's, like, strength, speed, and agility to superhuman, and durability to superhuman levels. And so several months pass. Toshinori's like really worried about this, and a familiar old man comes by to see Toshinori one day, because Inko has stated to Toshinori that she's kind of going to effectively retire. She will still do hero work when she's needed, but she wants to focus more on their expected child. So Gran Torino like is talking with Toshinori is went to see Gran Torino, and he talks to Gran Torino, and Gran Torino asks him, like, so does she know like the secret behind One for All? And Toshinori's like, I haven't talked to her about that yet, but she does know somewhat about it. And Gran Torino kind of smacks him in the back of the head and is like, she's your wife, damn it. And you guys are expecting a child. You shouldn't be hiding this from someone like that in your life. Like, I know. And he looks off into the distance and he's like, that's one of Nana's greatest remorses. She didn't tell her family about this. Well, at least her husband did. Her husband kind of knew somewhat, but she never really explicitly explained it to him, and it caused a lot of issues in their marriage, eventually causing them to get a divorce. And then he turns back to Toshinori and says, Toshinori, I don't want to see you go through the same things that my friend did. You need to sit down and talk to your wife and really explain your quirk to her. Hell, like, most people would have a hard time keeping up with you, but that woman, man, that woman, you really did find someone that's compatible with you. Because not only is she hot, and Toshinori's like, dude, and Yagi's like, and Gran Torino's like, don't get me wrong, she's too young for me, Toshinori, and plus she's already married to you. This old bag of bones probably wouldn't have a chance with a woman like that. And Toshinori tells Gran Torino, you're not that old yet, old man. And Toshinori looks down at the ground, and so Gran Torino basically like explained to him like Nana's thinking, and something she had confided in him a few days before she died, that her greatest mistake that she had is that she never really made a lot of time for her family, and she regrets not explaining like One for All to her husband. So with assault, like, Toshinori gets home and Inko's very much pregnant and showing. And she like walks up to Toshinori, basically grabbing like his coat and helping him out with his hero costume. And she says, and she notices Toshinori is worried about something. There's a look on his face that she hasn't seen in a while. Basically, she hasn't seen this look since the day he proposed to her. And he's like, I'm sorry, Inko. I've been keeping something from you, and with our child on the way, Come here, dear. Sit down. I don't want you to pass out from this. And Inko's now a little worried. She's like, sweetie, what's wrong? And Toshinori's like, nothing's wrong, dear. It's just, I need to explain my quirk better to you. And Inko's like, but haven't you already done that? And Toshinori looks down, and he's like, I'm sorry, I haven't been completely honest about it. So then he explains the secret to one for all to her. And she is concerned about this. She kind of slaps him. And he's like, dear, I'm sorry. And then she's like, I'm not slapping you because, like, I'm angry. I'm not slapping you because you lied to me. I'm slapping you because you haven't been honest with me about it. And Toshinori's like, isn't that the same thing? She's like, no, it's not. And then she basically uses her telepathy. She's like, dear, I am upset, but I get your concerns. It's how many people know about this? And Toshinori, like, understands. And she's like, well, David, he knows. Recovery girl. Gran Torino. And this is when Inko basically, like, actually starts speaking. She's like, wait, you know Gran Torino? And All Might looks shocked. And he's like, what, you know who Gran Torino is? And she's like, yeah, wasn't he that hero that... And then Inko's like, uses her telepathy. She's like, wait, the previous holder, was it Nana Shimura? Like, she kind of disappeared one day, and there wasn't anything about her. And this is when Toshinori kind of, like, tilts his head, and she's like, so, that's how you know Gran Torino. So, we cut to a few months after this whole incident. Inko does pick on Toshinori about him keeping it a secret from her when they're literally married and when they literally are married. And Inko, when she is giving birth to their child, Sir Night-Eye gets a call from the hospital, and he basically tells All Might, like, All Might asks, like, because Sir Night-Eye has a look of, like, shock on his face, and he tells All Might, he's like, do you ever check your phone, dude? And he looks at his phone, and he sees 62 missed calls from wife, and he's like, oh crap. And he turns to Sir Night-Eye, it's happening, isn't it? And Sir Night-Eye is like, yeah. So they head to the hospital that Inko had set up to give birth at. And I'm not sure in My Hero Academia if they do it in My Hero Academia or not. But I know in Japan, unless you go to a specific hospital, you don't get pain medication during childbirth. Different culture, different sets of medical means and stuff like that. So All Might kind of arrives, and so does Sir Night-Eye. And this hospital is kind of private, because they do have top heroes that have families. Like, for Christ's sakes, you have Endeavor, who has older children, and I would think that they would have more of a private setting when their children are born. So he arrives, and Recovery Girl's there, and she's like, Toshinori, this way. Like, she's just gone into, like, she's going into full-blown labor now, and she's about to give birth. Hurry up, this way. So, during the birth of Izuka Yagi, yes, Inko is taking Toshinori's last name. All Might's name is Toshinori Yagi. So, Izuka Yagi is born, but during the pregnancy, some things were happening. Like, equipment started to float, there were surges of power, like outside the room. All Might got weak at the knees because he felt a lot of freaking pain, like kind of crippling, like in his groin area. Because basically Inko's quirk and abilities were going off the charts. Her skin was fluctuating between diamond and regular, like, flesh. And this goes on for several hours. And then, like, when Izuka's born, everything basically calms down. And Inko's just sitting there, like, sweating bullets. They hand Izuka to Inko, and All Might's just standing there. Because, like, Izuka's she's not premature, but she is tiny for a newborn. I would say she's about half a pound lighter than what newborns usually are in Japan. So she's like half a pound lighter than the national average in Japan. And he's looking worried. And Inko looks at him and basically, like, talks to him telepathically. And it's like, what should we name her? And All Might's just looking at, like, this little girl and his wife. And she's like, sweetie, why don't come over here? Like, you should hold her. And when All Might reaches out his hands, Inko just places young Izuka into her father's hands. And All Might's just looking at this child and is like, I'm a dad. I have a daughter. And he then like puts her, like, head in his elbow and is holding her body with his other hand, just looking down at her. And the baby kind of looks at him and kind of, like, smiles a little bit. And so, like, All Might's like, Izuka? And the baby kind of, like, smiles a little bit more. And Inko's like, I like that name. And when he goes to pass Izuka back to her mother, she begins to cry. And then he brings her back and she stops crying. And Inko kind of has a pouty face. And All Might, like, supports her and says, it's alright, my daughter. You need to go back to your mother now. You need to eat. So he gets Izuka back to Inko, and he goes outside. And Sir Night-Eye did look at Izuka, kind of looking into her future. And he doesn't really see too much, but he does see an image of her going into UA. And Sir Night-Eye, not wanting to change the future too much, just kind of looks at All Might and puts his hand on his shoulder, and it's like, how does it feel to be a dad now? I guess you're gonna have to you're gonna have to slow down on your hero work. And All Might's like, looks at him with, like, dead seriousness and is like, I can never do that, like, sir. And he's like, but you have a kid now. And All Might's like, that's exactly why. I don't know. It's hard to explain. But when I held her and she reached up with her little hand and grabbed mine. I don't know. I just wanted to make sure to create a world that she will be safe in. And this is when Sir Night Eye basically kind of starts laughing. She's like, starts to laugh. And so now we skip a couple of weeks later because they did want to keep Inko and Izuka. Well, they wanted to keep Inko hospitalized because she did lose a lot of blood. Because placental tearing and stuff like that happened. And so they kept Izuka there because Inko was dead set on feeding her naturally and having a completely natural birth. So Toshinori every day has been showing up to the hospital. The news that Frost Queen has retired, has pretty much retired, has gone into retirement, because the past year she's only sporadically made appearances before she really started showing, and then basically dropped off the face of the planet. So Inko, when Inko's getting discharged and everything, she's looking at Toshinori holding Izuka, and she's using her telepathy to kind of gauge Toshinori, and she's like, "Dear, there's something I've been wanting to talk to you about. I want our little girl to have a normal life. With you as her father, that would be a little difficult." And she's like, "I kind of want to go move back to an old neighborhood I used to live in. I do have some friends there that I haven't seen since I was a little kid. And it was a good neighborhood. Safe, and there's a bunch of schools nearby. And who knows, maybe we can help out the neighborhood with the issues that it does have." So Toshinori looks at her and basically communicates with her via his mind. He's like, "That's actually something I've been wanting to talk to you about too, dear. I don't want our little girl growing up." And so, I want my little girl growing up with a normal life. I don't want her to think that she's better than anyone because we're her parents. I want her to be normal. So they do find a home that's close to the Canon apartment that Inko and Hisashi had gotten. So in this home, it is a legitimate house, like the Bakugo residence. It's a little bit bigger because All Might does have a gym there, and there is a small dojo because Inko uses it to work out and everything. And All Might basically has a weight gym with some pretty high-tech weights. And so it's known that All Might, he still has his agency in Tokyo, but they live where they do in Canton. Where they basically live in the same neighborhood that Inko lived with Hisashi in Canton. So one day, when she's at the park with little Izuka, this is a few years after Izuka had born. I would say Izuka's about 2 years, so about a 2-year time skip after she's born. They're there at the park, and Inko sees a little boy, and she kind of has a flashback from when she was a kid. And she's just thinking about, like, wow, I wonder if Mitsuki's doing. And when the little boy kind of falls down, like, she sees, like, a woman kind of come up to him. And she's a little abrasive, and she's like, boy. And, well, no. She sees a brown-haired man walk up to him, and it's like, there, son, there. Or, there, girl. There, my little one. Because, and then she sees a woman walk up with blonde, spiky hair, and she asks the man, she's like, dear, what happened? And he's like, Mitsuki, nothing much. Little Katsuki, she fell and kind of bruised her knee. And when Inko hears this, she kind of makes her way to the family. And when Mitsuki turns around, because her husband kind of says, there's someone behind you. And when Mitsuki turns around, she looks at Inko and looks really closely. And then she looks down at Izuka. Because I would say Inko is carrying her. And she's like, do I know you? And Inko's like, I'm not sure, but, like, did you used to know Midoriya back when you were younger? And this is when Mitsuki's like, yeah, but, like, her family, they moved to the States, and I kind of lost contact with her. And, like, I kind of decided to, like, live in this neighborhood, because, like, maybe one day she would return, and so you have a daughter, too. And so they talk, and Inko's, like, after a couple of minutes, is like, Mia-chan, it's been a while. And this is when Mitsuki really looks at Inko. And she's like, Ko-chan, is that really you? And so Mitsuki and Inko basically have reunited. I would say Inko's family moved to the States when she was 6. So Mitsuki and Inko were friends. And they began to laugh. And so she offers to, she's like, yeah, Inko's like, yeah, I've moved back here with my husband. We were in Tokyo for a while. And this is when Mitsuki kind of looks at Inko and basically grabs her hair and pulls it up into a ponytail. And she's like, wait, you're not. And Inko's like, you always were a smart one. Yeah, he is my husband. Well, I've retired because I didn't want looking down at little Izuka and Katsuki like they're playing together. It's like, I wanted her to have a normal life. And me and Toshi, we decided one of us would stay. And with me being pregnant, I kind of got out of the public eye to really focus on little Izuka there. So now we cut to a few years later when Izuka and Katsuki, they're about 5 years old. And Katsuki, she does like her quirk manifest, and Izuka's like running up to her. It's like Kachan, your quirk, it's like you have a quirk. Like, I hope my quirk's is good. And so they go to the doctor's office, and their test results are inconclusive because, like, it's weird. Like, they she doesn't have the joint, but she doesn't show any other means of, like, any other ideas about if she would have a quirk or not, or what her quirk would actually be. And All Might is here, because I'd say they went to a different doctor, because All Might and everything would have, like, gone to a quirk doctor that was recommended by Recovery Girl. And the doctor turns to All Might and he's like, Mr. Yagi, we can't really tell what kind of quirk she would have. She could either develop your quirk, your enhancer quirk, or she could develop your, looking at Inko. Like, yeah, we know, but, like, so she could have a quirk? But then the doctor's like, it's weird, though. Like, she showed signs that she could potentially have one, but she has, like, the extra joint in her toe. So All Might begins to, like, get worried about this, and Inko basically telepathically, like, tells him, it's like, it's up to you, dear, but we should probably wait until she's a little bit older before you do that. And All Might's like, yeah, I know, it's just, and so little Izuka is a little distraught, and when she calls up Katsuki, like, later that day, she's kind of crying, and Katsuki's like, what's wrong, Izu-chan? And she's like, they say that I may not ever develop a quirk, and Katsuki is not the same Katsuki that we have in canon. This Katsuki, I would say she has her rough edges. I would say she's tsundere. I would say that she's a tsundere type, more so than canon Katsuki. So Katsuki is a little concerned about this, and she's like, well, whatever, your parents are amazing heroes. You definitely will have a quirk one day. And this kind of makes Izuka smile. So now we're going to do a time skip to about 7 years before UA. One moment, I have someone at the door. Sorry about that interruption, it's my neighbor. So I believe where I was at was 7 years before UA. And Inko is over at the Bakugo residence with Izuka, and Izuka and Katsuki, they're kind of playing up in the room. And Inko receives a phone call. And, like, she has a look of mortification on her face. And like Mitsuki's like, what's wrong? And Inko immediately, like, composes herself and telepathically tells Izuka that she needs to come downstairs. They need to leave now. And she basically tells Mitsuki, like, I can't say I've got to go. Like, it was great seeing you again. I know we haven't really hung out, like, much this past month, but I've been having things that I've had to deal with. And Mitsuki's like, yeah, you started doing hero work again, right? And Ingo's like, yeah, I've been trying to get back into it. But in any case, I really do have to go. So she grabs Izuka and basically starts levitating and basically flies off to the hospital. Yes, Inko can fly technically somewhat because of her telekinetic abilities. And so Izuka is like asking her mom, like out loud, is like, "Mommy, what's wrong?" And this is when Inko basically, like, when they land at the hospital, she's like, because I would say she's gotten like a phone call, like a text, and she's been looking at her phone, and she's like, "Baby, Daddy's been hurt. Like, don't worry, don't freak out, but you're going to see him hooked up to machines. He's okay, he's stable, but just know, don't be freaked out. Like, Daddy's okay." And so now when Inko arrives into the lobby of like the hospital, they had like actually, it took her several hours to get there, because it was basically across, like it was a few cities over. So so when they come in, when they get into the lobby outside the door, like Recovery Girl's there, and so is Sir Night Eye, and also Gran Torino, and Principal Nezu, because I would say that this is a UA hospital, like a hospital that's owned by UA. And, well, Recovery Girl walks up to her and basically says he's stable now, but he's he's resting now. You two can go in and see him, but he has... And Inko basically talks to Recovery Girl via telepathy and says, "How bad is it really?" And Recovery Girl basically communicates to her, and Inko's like, "Damn fool, told him he wasn't ready yet." And then, so they basically go in, and she as she's entering the room, she's like, sweetie, are you up?" All Might begins to stir, but then when Izuka walks in, she sees like these tubes going into her dad, like there's a breathing tube going down his throat. He's basically in like a trunk body cast. And something clicks inside of Izuka. She begins to scream, and things begin to float in the room. Her skin starts switching in between like diamond and what looks like diamond and normal skin. Her hair begins to like switch between blonde and green. Like more blonde begins to show up in her hair. And no, this is not Super Saiyan. This is just a weird mixture of quirks happening. So at this time, Izuka is 7, so that would make her 16, yeah, 9. That would make Izuka 9. And so, and then Izuka begins to like cry, and everyone can hear, but she's not actually speaking. It's like, Daddy's hurt, Daddy's hurt, Daddy's hurt, Daddy's hurt, Daddy's hurt, Daddy's hurt. No, Daddy's hurt, Daddy's hurt. And then like the wall basically like outside the room gets ruptured. Gran Torino is able to grab everyone else, and they're just standing there looking at Izuka, and they look at All Might, and they're like, Toshinori, don't. And All Might's basically getting up, and he walks over to his daughter, basically fighting through like this bubble, and he's like, Izuka, sweetie, Izuka, calm down, Izuka, Daddy's here. And Izuka looks up, as like All Might is grabbing her, and she basically collapses. And All Might's just sitting there, and he kind of coughs up blood, and he's like turning his head away, and he basically is like, damn it. And so his like Inko's a little concerned about this because Izuka never showed her potential for a quirk, and the fact that her hair was kind of changing color and getting more blonde than green, because I would say her hair color like is a good mixture between blonde and green throughout the entire thing. Basically green with like blonde, so like a dirty green, like a greenish blonde color. And this brings up a lot of concern. So stop here with this part. So over the let me explain Katsuki and Izuka's relationship a little bit more. They're pretty much sisters. There's like two peas in a pod. Like, kids try to bully Izuka because she's quirkless, and like they've started calling her Deku because they're like, oh, you could never be like your, you will always be like useless. You don't even have a quirk. And Katsuki would always come to her defense, basically exploding like the boys off of her, and like she's basically took more of like a big sister role in the relationship. So that being said, we cut back to our story, and this is a few weeks later after Izuka had like manifested her quirk, and Inko and All Might are really concerned about this because she showed levels of telepathy and telekinesis. Also, she has her mother's quirk, and it seems like One For All may have enhanced that quirk or something, and they don't really know what's going on. And so Toshinori has done a press conference because it did get in the news, because not only did Izuka destroy the wall, but she kind of accidentally leveled a bunch of trees around the hospital. So they didn't realize the tree until like a few moments later. So Inko, like Toshinori, has said that he's going to be taking some time off. And this is something he didn't want to do, but Inko basically strong-armed him into actually taking time off to properly heal, being a good wife and everything, and basically they hold a press conference, and Inko's there as well, and she basically announces that she's coming out of retirement. Now, that being said, this is when All Might tells the press that he needs to take some time off because he was injured, and they announce to the world that they do have a kid. And he basically says, I've been missing a lot out of my kid's life, and well, I want to take some time off to recuperate from an injury. Basically looking at Inko, saying something that happened, and this is Inko's doing more so than him. My wife here's a little concerned, a little overly concerned, and he's laughing. And this is when Inko basically pipes up in the interview and says, no, we will not be answering any questions about our kid. And yes, the rumors those many years ago that we were together, we have actually been married. I've taken time off to help to raise our kid. And well, with Toshinori taking some time off, I've decided to come back and actually to hero work. And news reports go out. Former #1 hero coming back to the limelight. Hiatus of taking care of a child. Current #1 hero taking hiatus for recovery and to help with the child. So this does cause a few things. They do have to move to a more secure location, basically the same neighborhood that Endeavor lives in, because that way they can kind of keep Izuka out of the media until they feel she's ready. So before Inko took a break, she was considered the #1 hero because she had telekinetic abilities, she had telepathy, she could go into this diamond state to where her skin's pretty much invulnerable to like firearms and stuff like that. She can produce force fields. She can fly, basically using her telekinetic abilities to move herself telekinetically. And she was always had like that loving aura. Basically, she was very approachable. Like kids would she would always kids would always see her in public, and they would run up to her. She would always interact with the general public. So at a time, Inko was the #1 hero, All Might was the #2, and Endeavor was the #3 at the time. But since Inko kind of left the hero scene to kind of raise Izuka, so that at least one parent's home with her is kind of the thing that her and Toshinori had come to an agreement about. And so with that, Inko is now now in the story, Inko is back in the spotlight. She's instant, criminals are even more scared now because unlike her husband, she's a little bit more brutal, because she would basically play massive mind games with people and then seriously hit them physically to bring them down. So All Might's taking time off to recuperate from his injury from his fight with All For One. Izuka's quirk had manifest. Inko is back in the public eye as a pro hero. So with that being said, I hope you beautiful souls enjoyed this. I did spend some time, and I have been toying with the idea of a Dad All Might what if. And I hope all of you beautiful souls really do enjoy this. So comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And I will see you beautiful souls in the next video.